I really like Warframe. I've dumped nearly 1,000 hours into this game, which I know compared to some people isn't a lot, but I digress. And I've enjoyed nearly every moment of it. I think, personally for me, the thing that keeps me coming back to this game time and time again is probably honestly the main selling point of the game, the Warframes. From angelic support frames that gracefully soar above the battlefield, buffing their allies and raining destruction onto their enemies, to a dancer that uses electricity to control the battlefield, locking down areas around her and spelling certain death for those that try to get close to her, and even a man that moves really, really fast. Yeah, they really decided they needed to do that twice, huh? I think all the Warframes are endearing in their own special way. I personally believe that no Warframes kit is bad, and while yes, some of them might be underpowered and in heavy need of a rework, or so incredibly janky that it makes them really hard to play, they still have a place in the game. I am the type of person that constantly needs to switch things up when it comes to video games. Not necessarily switching between video games all the time, but if I keep doing the same thing over and over again, I will start to quickly burn out. Wait, how the fuck do I have over 900 hours in this game? What I mean by that is, I really like to switch characters. One of the reasons I could never get into something like CSGO, and I might catch some flame for this, but it was because the rounds felt too samey to me. Besides gun variety, there wasn't a whole lot of freedom of choice. I think that's why if you'd ask me if I'd rather play Valorant or CSGO, I would say pull the trigger, I would rather die. Thankfully, Warframe is a game with a lot of characters. In fact, at the moment I'm writing this script, it has 64 unique characters. God damn, that is a lot. At the time I started this challenge, I had just gotten out of college for the semester, and knowing that I didn't have much to do besides work and that's kind of it, I figured I'd give myself a challenge. So I thought about it for a bit, and I set my sights on getting every single Warframe in the game. How hard could it be? When I started, I had 27 Warframes, which is actually a lot. I'm not going to do a dedicated grinding guide for every Warframe in the game, as a lot of the Warframes I owned before the start of this challenge were primed frames, but if that is something you are interested in, leave a comment down below and I might do it. As a side note, I'm also thinking of doing an enjoyability tier list of every Warframe now that I own them all, so potentially keep an eye out for that. With that aside, I had all of the Warframes that you are now seeing on screen at the start of this challenge. Meaning what I had to get was all of these Warframes. I primarily focused on getting their non-primed frames for this challenge because I do want to do a separate video where I slowly prime all my frames and subsume the non-primed ones. However, I'm not banning getting primed Warframes for this challenge. I do think the biggest rule for this though was that if at all possible, I was going to try to avoid trading for the primed versions of Warframes, but spoiler alert, while I did do a fairly good job at it, there was one later on that I did eventually have to trade for Platinum with. But without further ado, let's get into the challenge. Alright, the date is May 7th, 2026, and is the official start of my collecting every single Warframe in the game challenge. I currently have all of these Warframes that you see here. Good selection. Day 1 started off really strong. Apparently, I have been sitting on Volt and Trinity Prime for literal months now, so I started by crafting their Prime versions, so that's an immediate 2 off the list. After that, I started working on some Warframes that I was really close to crafting, one of them being Noko. Whenever the Orb Valis Undermine update came out, I actually grinded it a decent bit, but weirdly enough, it wasn't for Noko himself. The reason I ended up grinding that was actually for some Arcanes. I don't know why, but when the update came out, I decided to spend all my time going for, like, primary Blight instead of going for Noko. But in that process of grinding out the Arcanes, I had already gathered all the Noko parts and was able to craft him, so all I had to do was get 2 Argon Crystals and do a little bit of fishing. And on the topic of Argon Crystals, this is going to be the biggest annoyance point is Argon Crystals. They can only be found in the Void, and sometimes they just won't ever drop for me. But whatever, I'll probably have a rant later in this script towards that. The next Warframe I decided to grind out was actually one that I had crafted in the past but ended up subsuming, and that's Necros. I don't know why I got rid of him, but I decided to grind him out so that way I could have a dedicated loot frame for the rest of this challenge. But, as it turns out, I didn't end up using him at all in this entire challenge. In fact, as of the day I'm recording this voiceover, which is July 19th, I still have not leveled him. I haven't touched him since I claimed him from my foundry.
Hi, it's me a month later. I'm editing this video now. You can see right here it is July 18th, almost a month after I recorded this. I still have not touched Necros.
I also completely forgot to record me collecting him, so you just have to take my word for it. I also started crafting Mag and Limbo on day 1, as I also had all their pieces. Limbo I got from the Limbo Theorem, and Mag it's just miscellaneous star chart completion. I don't exactly know where you got her, but I also ended up getting really confused because Limbo has a 1-minute craft time across the board.
Whoa, those finished fast.
Are you enjoying the view?
The hell? Okay, well, apparently Limbo has a 1-minute craft time. I did not know this.
Anyway, day 1 was off to a really good start. I had crafted Volt, Trinity, Noko, Mag, Necros, and Limbo, and that's 6 of the 37 Warframes I needed for this challenge. Surely if I can keep up this pace, I'll have the challenge done in no time. Day 2 of the challenge started with me claiming all the pieces for Mag, Noko, and Necros, and getting their main blueprint started for crafting. Also, as a note for this challenge, when I wasn't recording, I was usually grinding Omnia fissures and selling the prime parts I got for this to afford all the Warframe slots I was going to need, which totaled out to about 740 platinum worth of items. I think at the start of this challenge I was able to liquidate about 120 platinum worth of items, but obviously that's not 740, so just know that in the background I was grinding for primed pieces that I could sell on the market. But after that, I spent the rest of my day grinding out Grendel Prime, which was a Warframe that I had the majority of the pieces for already. And I got the last piece I needed for him, logged off for the day, and I didn't start crafting him for some reason. But whatever, surely I'll start crafting him on day 3. Alright, day 3, let's see what I did here. I hopefully, got Grendel started crafting, and... What was that? I didn't play on day 3? Huh. Welp, I guess time to move on to day 4. I started day 4 by finally getting started on crafting Grendel Prime. I needed some Argon crystals for him, so I ended up going and doing my favorite capture mission in the Void. And just while we are here, I think I want to talk about Argon crystals for a second. Fuck Argon crystals. I swear to God, whenever you need Argon crystals, these motherfuckers do not drop. I think during this, I at one point had run 6 capture missions in a row with a max range Zaku spamming his 4th ability and opening every locker, and I didn't get a single fucking Argon crystal. But the second you don't need these, they start dropping like fucking candy. It was like, oh, just save them, it'll be fine. Wrong, because for those who don't know, these fucking decay. By the time you actually need them, you only have 1 left, and the Warframe you want to craft needs 2. So sad for you. I fucking hate Argon crystals so much. But apparently, during the night, I also had decided to claim Mag without recording any footage. So I have Mag now. But after that, I decided I needed to go grind out Site 09, a Warframe I had previously had but ended up actually subsuming. Fortunately, I did end up kind of fucking up when buying Site. Site is one of those Warframes that whenever you complete their corresponding quest, in Site's instance it's the Hex, you get their main blueprint for free. Another Warframe like that will make an appearance later on in this video. However, you have to buy any further Site 09 blueprints from Amir in the Hovanian Mall. However, the rest of the parts can not only be obtained from said vendor, but grinding out 1999 missions, where my dumbass decided to buy Site 09's individual pieces instead of grinding for it, before realizing I didn't have enough standing left in a day to buy his main blueprint, so I ended up having to wait till the next day in order to get Site 09. However, I figured at the very least I could get started on crafting his pieces, and for the rest of the day I ended up just grinding out Varuna on Lua. While day 5 I admittedly didn't grind a whole lot, it was a big day in the sense that I got to claim some Warframes that I was fairly happy about. To start, I got to claim Volt and Trinity Prime, which, I mean, 2 Prime frames, you can't really complain about that. Then I also started crafting Grendel Prime and Varuna, and I did a little bit more grinding for Site 09, but aside from that, I really didn't do too much. Day 5 was fairly uneventful. Alright, day 6 is where we started to run into a few problems with the challenge. To start, Necros and Noko had finally finished crafting. However, I didn't have enough Warframe slots to claim them both, which is a very big problem with this challenge that I believe I mentioned towards the start. So I did make the executive decision to claim Necros over Noko, but if you recall, probably like a couple minutes ago, I said I did not end up using Necros throughout this entire challenge. So yeah. Tangents aside, I then grinded out some more standing and got around to crafting the main Site 09 blueprint. Then, later that night, I made the mistake of deciding to do a 2-hour endurance run in the circuit, and I'll just let a very tired me explain what's going on.
Alright, I'm starting this extremely late into the run. Basically, I was running normal circuit. It says I've been running at this for an hour, but that's a lie. I've been going at this for about 2 hours at this point. And the reason I'm doing this is because Oberon is the frame that is available in my normal circuit.
The Void Angels are unrelenting.
Getting to the point where my Valkyr is
all that is keeping them at
tweaking the fuck out.
Hold fast.
But I have stupidly decided that I wanted to get Oberon all in this one run of circuit. And this will be the last thing I need to do is this Void Flood mission. And Void Flood is free as hell. Yeah, it's a little bad.
Excellent work.
2,000 kills. I've never done a full sitting of finishing off my entire circuit path. This was extremely awful. I would never recommend doing this.
The rupture is closed. The paradox stabilizes.
Like obviously, if you have the time to do this, and you have better endurance than I do, I think this could be a fun challenge, especially for sitting here with friends. But I ran this with randos, who obviously all abandoned me. So, this was a pain in the eye. I mean, I was in call with my friends, but it's 1 a.m. They all went to bed. So I've been sitting here for like the past hour alone. Can't even turn on music because I have to pause. But, because literally if I
defenses are weakest here.
Stop for a second, I'm cooked. Oh, fuck me, man. Fuck that noise. But
Oh, I win! I am having so much fun with you, little meat. Ooh, what shall we play
Oberon
next?
Neuroptics. Oberon Chassis. Oberon Systems. And Oberon himself.
Orders reminds the operator to take time for themselves.
But now that
Pressure
means
creates
I
balance,
can
yes,
start
but it also creates rubber.
crafting Oberon.
Holy shit, that audio mixing was bad. Hopefully it won't be like that in some of the future videos. I think it was recording my webcam mic instead of my actual mic, but whatever. But yeah, now I have Oberon, which officially brings us up to 10 frames collected total. I also do think this is the only time I've ever grinded out an entire circuit in one sitting, and I honestly do not recommend it. That shit was not fun at all. Day 7 started with me crafting the main Oberon blueprint, and yeah, that's kind of all I did. I didn't really play much. I think that 2-hour circuit endurance run kind of did numbers on me. So let's just jump to day 8. All right, day 8. This was a big day for the challenge. So for some background information on the game, for those who might be new or don't play the game, the majority of the Warframes you get in the game, the base ones at least, are from grinding out bosses. Every planet in the game has a node on it where you will fight a boss, and that boss will drop each one of their main components barring the blueprint. And I decided that today was going to be the day that I was going to grind out the majority of those bosses. The grind for today started with me hunting Nyx. Nyx's pieces can be found from the forward assassination, which unfortunately can only be found when an infested invasion takes over a planet. The grind overall isn't horrible. I would just make sure you don't bring a shield focus frame and you'll be fine. Someone like Inaros, Nidus, or another health tank, maybe like Kalervo, will be fairly effective for this mission. Next I went for Hydroid. His pieces can be found on the Vahek assassination on Earth. I don't really have anything to say about this mission as well. As long as you're fine with listening to Vahek's annoying ass laugh, you should be fine. He's a complete pushover and will usually fold in one hit as long as you're using a good weapon with some investment. If you aren't, don't worry about it, this guy's still piss easy to kill. I got pretty lucky with Hydroid as I only needed to run the mission twice. I already had one of his pieces from when I was doing base star chart clearing, and the other 2 pieces just dropped fairly quickly. Next up is Atlas, whose components are acquired from the Jorda's Golem assassination on Eris. Note for that this one in particular, you need to complete the quest to unlock the node on the star chart, and you will also get the main blueprint from the quest. I believe additional blueprints can be bought from Cephalon Samaris in any relay. After I grinded out Atlas, I took a small break before getting back to grinding, where I hit Rhino, Nova, and Siren. I'll talk about Siren last because she's a bit more involved. Rhino and Nova are fairly standard. Rhino is a beginner Warframe that you get from the Jackal assassination on Venus. If you're a new player, I couldn't recommend Rhino enough. His blueprint only takes 12 hours to craft, so you'll get him fairly fast. For some reason, I think it took me a hot reason to get one of the Rhino pieces I was missing. I sat there for doing 7 assassination missions before I was actually able to get it. If I could recommend anything for this boss fight, just try to stay mobile. The Jackal's laser walls hurt a lot, but if you can stay moving around or hide behind the pillars that are in the arena while they are still there, it is able to trivialize the boss fight. Overall, this one's not too bad, and if you have access to a flying frame, they just make the boss a complete pushover. For Nova, her main components are dropped from the Raptor assassination on Europa. The Raptors are barely a boss fight. Just make sure you throw the bombs in the correct spot and you'll be fine. If you have a speed frame like Gauss or Volt, running one of them will allow you to complete this mission in 4 minutes tops. My Nova grind only took me 14 minutes because I got a duplicate piece, so only 3 missions because of the piece I already had from base star chart clearing. So not too bad. Alright, now for Siren. So there are 4 nodes on the star chart we need to talk about when it comes to grinding out Siren, all of which are on Sedna. Naki, Yam, Voidon, Vadionoi, and Marrow. Basically, in order to fight Kayla Dathame on Marrow, you need to get Judgment Points. Judgment Points are earned from the other mentioned nodes, which I'm not going to go through again because I'm going to mispronounce the one with the V like 5 times. Naki is free to enter and rewards players with 10 points. Yam costs 10 points to enter and rewards the player with 15 points. And the name that you see appear on screen right now costs 15 points to enter, but you will get 25 points. In order to enter Marrow and fight Kayla Dathame, you need to spend 25 points. And upon completion of the level, players will be refunded with 13 Judgment Points. And if you fail, you get nothing. Alright, you got all that? It's only going to get a little bit worse from here, probably. I would recommend just trying to either grind Naki or, again, the V1 that's appearing on screen right now. Both of those have a payout of 10, with the V1, again, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, having a higher payout but more risk involved. Yeah, if this advice is also bad, please let me know in the comments. I don't know. I'm bad at this game. The fight itself isn't too bad. Kayla has 3 health bars with a phase in between each health bar. The fight itself isn't what I want to talk about because, again, like the majority of the bosses in this game, she kind of just folds whenever you hit her hard enough. It's about the in-between sections. The center platform will have 4 pads on it, and on the respective closest wall to the pad, a spinning disc. The disc has 1 hole that will spin and will occasionally spin over a glowing light. And whenever that light is visible, you need to shoot it. You need to do all 4 discs before Kayla re-enters the arena. Now, at the start, whenever Kayla retreats for the first time, she will start a rocket barrage, and every 15 seconds after the first barrage, rockets will fire out over the arena. These rockets can hurt if you're not careful, so I just make sure you stay active. During the rocket barrage, the spinning wheels will not be activated, and will only return to being active after the barrage ends. I found from solo play, you are usually able to get about 3 of the spinning discs complete before the first barrage starts, and then you're able to finish the last one off after the first barrage. Alright, you got all that? Good. The Kayla Dathame fight can be a little complicated and overwhelming, but honestly, it's not the worst once you start to get a hang of it. Just make sure you keep moving during the rocket barrage and you'll be fine. But after all that's said and done, you should have Siren. Congrats! Buy her main blueprint from the market and get her crafting. But that's all I did for day 8, so let's get moving on. Alright, day 9 started out with me grinding Frost and getting him fully crafted. Frost is another one of the assassination warframes and is acquired from the Vor and Lich Krill assassination on Mars. For some godforsaken reason, the systems have a lower chance of dropping than the chassis and the neuroptics, so you might spend a little bit longer grinding that one out. Lich Krill and Vor isn't that bad. If I could recommend anything, I would focus on Vor first, and then hit Lich Krill. After that, I did some Styanax grinding, but I'm going to get back to him a little bit later in the video because Styanax is a bit more involved than your average Warframe. My day ended with me grinding arguably some of the worst Warframes in the game, Equinox, who was acquired from the Tile Regor fight on Uranus, and Loki, who is acquired from the Hyena Pack assassination on Neptune. The Hyena Pack, just like the Raptors, is a complete pushover. They are not hard to fight at all. Tile Regor can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but overall isn't the worst thing to fight. My biggest tip I could offer is just making sure you kill the maniacs he releases during the in-between phases as fast as possible, as they will hurt like a motherfucker if they get to you. Also, note that for this Warframe in particular, you have to grind out both her day and night form. And then, when you have all those components, they can be crafted into the respective day and night aspect, which takes 3 days. And then, for some fucking reason, you need to do another 3 days on top of that for the main blueprint. So this mid as fuck Warframe, you need to spend 6.5 days waiting to craft. It's fucking ridiculous. They really need to change her main blueprint to be like 1 minute. I already rated 3 days for the respective aspects, and I don't want to wait another 3 days for just fucking Equinox. Whatever. Let's move on to day 10. Alright, day 10 was another really uneventful day. I claimed the components for Loki and Equinox and started crafting them in their respective warframes and aspects. Fuck you, Equinox. I also claimed a new frame. I added Varuna to my inventory. And just as a little side tangent here, I've been playing Varuna a lot more. I think she's a really fun Warframe, unironically. But whatever. Moving on to day 11. Day 11 was another big day. I had finally got accepted into a maxed out clan. I had left my old clan and joined the clan my brother's in, so that way I could have access to all of the labs fully maxed out. So I was able to get the components for Banshee, Nezha, Wukong, and Zephyr, knocking 4 frames off the list just at the start of day 11, which was really big. I was also able to finally get the rest of the Styanax components, which again, I'm going to talk about them a little bit later on, whenever I actually grind out his main blueprint. I also forgot to mention this earlier, but when I was grinding out the boss Warframes, I got an extra piece of the Ember Neuroptics, Frost Chassis, and Siren systems, and crafted them so I could start putting together Chroma. But, in my infinite wisdom, I forgot to get the Volt Neuroptics, so that delayed me crafting Chroma by a little bit. But after I took a small break on day 11, I grinded out some relics for another Prime Frame, which we love to hear. Oh, what's that? I forgot to record myself cracking the godforsaken relics? Fuck. I went for Protea Prime, a Prime Frame I've wanted for a very long time. I've actually tried many times throughout, I want to say a good 6 months to get our final piece, but I could never get it from, I was spamming Radiant Relics, and I could never get it. But thankfully, this time around, a little bit of luck was on my side, and I only had to crack 3 relics, I think, to get the final piece I needed. However, this is a very important point in the challenge, because after getting Protea, I only had 10 Warframes left to grind, those being Vauban, Corvex, Nidus, Kalervo, Inaros, Hildren, Folly, Citrine, Baruuk, and Ash. And just based off of that, I want you to make a guess at which one of these 10 Warframes will be the last one. Because knowing the answer now, I would have never guessed which one would have been the last one I get. However, day 11 doesn't end here. This was a very big day. Again. Inaros is a Warframe that I had owned in the past, but sold. And let me be clear, I now really regret selling him. Not because I find him fun. I still do not find Inaros fun. That was the whole reason I sold him in the first place. But because to get him back for this challenge, I needed to get 125,000 fucking standing with Cephalon Samaris. Oh my god, you needed so much. Do not sell Inaros after you complete Sands of Inaros. At the very least, subsume him. It's not like scanning enemies for the Sanctuary is even that hard. It's just annoying. It's something I don't really think about often. But I was able to buy the pieces for Inaros as much as I wanted to get, I think it's energy conversion. And I got them crafted. Next up was Nidus. Nidus' main blueprint is acquired from the Glass Gambit quest, a super annoying quest that I don't even want to think about. But after you get his main blueprint, his components are dropped from infested salvage missions on... How the hell do you say that? Oestros? Sure. Oestros on Eris. His components can be dropped from all the rotations, but has the highest chance of dropping in rotation C. So playing a mission through all 4 rotations and then backing out is usually the best way to go about things. Now, I do got some tips for Infested Salvage. I'm not going to go over how to play the mission, but if I was to give some tips, it would be make sure whenever you load to the map, scout out the tile set just a little bit. Make sure that you can get to all 3 of the vaporizers in 1 bullet jump. You want to minimize the amount of time you're out of the vaporizers. I mean, if you are, it's not the end of the world, but losing that armor does kind of suck. The missions aren't horribly difficult. Just make sure you're keeping a good rotation through all 3 of the vaporizers. And to cap off the day, I claimed a lot of Warframes, and I'm just going to play the clip.
It's time to claim some Warframes. Banshee. Chroma. Nezha. Wukong. And Zephyr. Banshee. Neja. Wukong. Zephyr. Chroma. Uh-oh. Shit. How do you get the Volt Neuroptics? I didn't think about this. Volt Neuroptics are bought from the Tenno Lab. Man, I just completely forgot about that. Oops. Now we start the Volt. And we just wait for that to be done. Cool.
Alright, so I'm getting a little tired of the day-by-day format, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm just going to slowly cover the remaining 8, technically 9, I'll get to Stynex in a little bit, Warframes that are left, and I'll go over their grind and end off by saying what day I got it on, probably. Alright, so we're going to start this one off with Vauban, probably the easiest of the ones left. Vauban can be bought from the Nightwave. That's it. That's really it. The only reason I didn't do him sooner is just because I didn't have any Nightwave credits left. But on day 14 I had enough credits to make Vauban, so that's another off the list. Next up, I hit Baruuk. Baruuk is acquired from Little Duck, which is a separate sub-syndicate, I guess you can call it that you get access to after you get max standing with Solaris United, which thankfully I already was. I cannot imagine how much of a pain in the ass this would have been if I didn't have max standing already. His main blueprint can be bought from Little Duck at rank 2, while his components can be bought at rank 3. I think the best way, honestly, to level up Little Duck is just by doing Profit Takers, go figure. Selling the Toroids you get from Profit Taker is just a really good way to get it, obviously. I mean, they drop a lot of standing. Alternatively, if you despise the British, I mean Little Duck, and want a way to easily get Baruuk, you can always just wait for him to come back around the Deviri circuit. I was going to do that, but he had literally just passed by the time that I wanted to grind him. Overall, Baruuk isn't the worst thing to grind. If you just have a little bit of patience and are willing to do some Profit Takers, or again, the Deviri circuit, you can get Baruuk in a couple of days. Day 17 saw me starting the process of crafting Baruuk, which now leads on to only 7 Warframes left. Next on my list, I hit Temple. They are one of the more recent Warframes, so Temple has a quirky special mission called Stage Defense. Stage Defense is effectively just a defense mission. I mean, it's got defense in the name, and it's just got a fresh coat of paint thrown over it. You run or motorcycle over to the stage where Flare, the Temple proto-frame, is putting on a bangin' show. Just look at that crowd. For the first 3 waves, your goal is to defend Flare up on the surface as numerous Holvanian citizens call in a noise complaint. The police respond, trying to shut us down, but as we are sovereign citizens and believe the law does not apply to us, we fight back. Occasionally during the show, the speakers around the stage will play the loudest MP3 sound, causing everyone in the blast to stumble. Eventually, after enough time has passed, aka 3 fucking waves, Victor will get mad that we are still playing emo punk music, as he is God's biggest Swiftie, and will send a screamer. Killing this screamer rewards an arcane, which really isn't that important. Why the fuck did I put this in the script? After the wave with the screamer is done, you will be rewarded with some beating heartstrings, 4 to 9 normally, and 7 to 14 on the steel path. These beating heartstrings are a pity system. You need 395 beating heartstrings to buy Temple, 195 for the main blueprint, and 65 for each of the components. The respective blueprints for Temple can drop from each rotation of stage defense. However, they have the highest chance of dropping on rotation C, so once again, doing 12 waves before extracting and repeating will yield the best results. Got that? Great. I'm proud of you. Pat yourself on the back. Just a little bit more information and we'll be done with this. Honestly, kind of forgettable Warframe. Which, on that note, I got a really funny story about Temple. So, I was on the way to get dinner with my brother before me and him went to play D&D with some friends. We were talking about Warframe on our way into town, and I told him how my challenge was going. And I handed him my phone to show him the Google Doc that I was using to record what Warframes I had and who I still needed. He scrolls through it and stops for a bit. He tells me that I had forgotten to include Temple. This one Warframe was so forgettable to me that if he didn't point it out, I could have very well completed this challenge without realizing that I forgot about Temple. So, thanks Brody, you're a real lifesaver with that one. Okay, but getting back to stage defense, the mission is going to change up a bit from here. After Wave 3, you're going to be dropped down into the underneath of Hulvania, into a sewer system. The terrain down here is a bit more janky and resembles the average... That is a joke I can make here, but I can't think of it. Whatever. I'm going to keep this in the video, it's funny as fuck. The terrain down here is a bit more janky, making enemies a bit harder to deal with, but overall, it's not that bad. In addition to the Scaldra units, Tekrot units will now begin to spawn down here, but overall, I think that honestly might be better because there's less overall ranged units because some of the Tekrots are more melee focused. Again, or at least I think that's how it works. If I could suggest any Warframe for this, Protea or Gyre would be amazing, or really just anyone with huge AoE coverage that you can abuse to keep Flare safe. This Glind? This grind can be cumbersome if you don't get lucky and get the main blueprint piece, as getting that halves the amount of beating heartstrings you need, assuming you don't get any other pieces. I got extremely lucky and was able to get the Warframe blueprint really early on, so this grind really wasn't the worst thing in the world. I did the grind solo, but if you can get a team together to do this on the steel path, then it would go even quicker. But I got Temple on day 22, and now we only have about 6 Warframes left. And I think it's finally time we talk about Styanax. Styanax is such a cool Warframe, man. I wish it was just a little bit easier to get. Oh, what's that? He's getting a primed variant soon. And it's taken me so long to write this script and make the video that he's out by now. Fuck. Styanax! Whenever people talk about Warframes that are annoying to get, Styanax is usually brought up as one of the big 3, right next to Kalervo and Citrine. Styanax can be acquired by purchasing all his components and blueprints from Chipper in the Drifter camp for 270 stock. Now, you might be asking me, oh Mystic, how do you even get stock? Well, first I'd say to you, who are you? How the fuck did you get into my house? But second, I'd tell you that stock is acquired from running Break and Armor missions. These are 3 special missions where you play as Call 175 and are accompanied by Daughter as a replacement for the Lotus. There are 3 missions that you can partake in: Sneaky Sabotage, where you sneak through Narmer facilities and sabotage their means of production before escaping; Prison Break, where Call needs to free Veiled Grenier and Corpus prisoners and make a daring escape; and Junk Run, where you kind of just salvage shit. That's it, really. Every Call mission ends with a big boss fight, which will appear on the screen now. Alongside the Call missions, you can do sub-missions to get some extra stock. I'm not going to go into all the missions, but some of them are a bit more difficult than others, so I'd recommend looking it up if you're struggling with a specific sub-mission. Each mission can reward a max of roughly 100 stock. Wait, that sounds pretty easy, I hear you saying. Just run 3 missions and buy Styanax. Yep, you're absolutely right. It is that easy. Just kidding, you fucking idiot. You can only run 1 Call mission a week, and running the same Call mission twice doesn't reward more stock, unless you complete a mission you had previously hadn't completed. Okay, well, 3 weeks, that's not that bad, I can hear you saying, and yeah, 3 weeks is a bit much, but you only have to run 1 Call mission a week, maybe 2 if you don't get everything the first time around. That's not that bad. Well, so by doing the weekly Call mission, you level up with Chipper. And that is the only way to level up. And guess what? The main blueprint for Styanax can only be bought from Chipper. Chimper? And guess what? The main blueprint for Styanax can only be bought from Chipper once you're level 5 and you have done an entire month's worth of Call missions. And God forbid you want to buy the Archon mods first before you buy Cyanax, as those will only make it take even longer. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this Warframe's a bit of a pain in the ass to get, but even then, he still really isn't that bad to grind. Even if he does take 5 weeks to even have the option to fully buy, the biggest saving grace with these missions is that the Call missions are balanced around the fact that you'll be playing as Call. You won't be going in with any of your equipment, so they're doable at all levels of play. The biggest tip I can give is just don't be afraid to do stuff in multiple runs. You won't be able to get every mission done in one run. Like, there are some weeks where you'll have, like, missions where you'll need to go out of your way to salvage shit, but you'll also have to beat the mission in 5 minutes. Another big tip for this would be experiment with what guns you like. I tend to like the Ignis a lot during these missions, but if you find a gun you like a lot, you can make these missions a lot more bearable. My final tip is to look out for stock laying around on the ground. You can only pick up about 10 of these per mission, but even that small amount is going to be helpful. But after all that is said and done, you will have the GOAT, Cyanax. Corvex! Yeah, after all that I needed a bit of an easier Warframe grind. Getting Corvex is honestly pretty straightforward. The way you get the main blueprint for Corvex is by completing the Whispers in the Wall quest. If you don't have his blueprint by either you made Corvex and subsumed him, or sold him for some reason, an additional blueprint for Corvex can be bought from Bird 3 for 50,000 standing, but only after you have reached rank 4 with the caveat. His components can be acquired from level 1 through 3 Sanctum and Atomica bounties, each having between a 12 and 13% chance of dropping. Corvex is not a hard Warframe to get, I just accidentally put off getting it for way too long. Just run level 1 through 3 bounties, they're not that hard to complete. If you get really unlucky, the process of grinding them will also reward standing, where you could potentially alleviate some of the grinding by buying the blueprint. I will also add that these bounties do drop a lot of endo, so even if you are getting unlucky, you will at the very least have that as a plus side. Again, Corvex should be a pretty easy grind, and my brother gives him the seal of approval for being a fun Warframe. Only 5 Warframes remain now. Ash the Assassin, Citrine the Crystal Guardian, Folly the Mad Painter, Hildren the Domina of Armaments, and Kalervo the Betrayer. All of these Warframes have an annoying grind, whether that be from having a long grinds, low drop chances, or even having to play Railjack. The quest to unlock these final 5 Warframes will begin with Kalervo. Oh my god, I fucking despise Duviri. And you know what? Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I play Duviri wrong. Maybe I don't understand the secret sauce that causes Duviri to secretly be the most fun and exciting thing in the entire world. I've given Duviri so many tries. I have my intrinsics for it almost entirely maxed out, and I still don't understand how I'm supposed to find this fun. I can fuck with the circuit. That's like whatever. Getting all of the creates to see how far you can make it is fun. But something about the Duviri experience just does not work for me. Every time I want to get a new Incarnate in Genesis and I have to grind out resources in Duviri, I feel another piece of me die. But that rant aside, how was grinding Kalervo? I mean, it was fine. I kind of just did it in the background while I was grinding for other Warframes. Definitely made it a lot easier than sitting down and doing it all in one sitting. But let's actually talk about how to even get Kalervo. Alright, so first you're going to need to be in either the Anger, Sorrow, or Fear spiral. So already off to a great start. You can only actually grind Kalervo in like a little over half the spirals. So now what you're going to do is complete that spiral and just go defeat the Aura Worm real quick. It'll be fine. A bit of a side tangent, but in my humble opinion, the Aura Worm is the only thing that made Duviri fun. This is probably my favorite boss in the entire game. Not only does it look really, really cool, but it's honestly a really fun boss fight. But after defeating the Aura Worm, you don't leave like you normally would. You're going to want to open your map and teleport to Kalervo's Hold, where it is now time to take on the Betrayer. After defeating Kalervo 3 times, you'll be rewarded with 4 to 6 Kalervo's Bane in normal mode and 6 to 8 in Steel Path. Great, now you've done that. Now all you gotta do is do it again. Because you're gonna need 42 Kalervo's Banes in order to fully purchase him from Arcthis in the Dorm Zone. Yeah, this one's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's more than worth it. Kalervo's a super strong melee frame, and while his grind might be a bit of a pain in the ass, overall I think that it's well worth the grind. It just takes a little bit of determination. I never, ever in my life want to do Duviri again. Good lord, fuck Duviri. Foley. This Warframe had a bit of a rough release, but Digital Extremes did change it and make the mission a lot more bearable. So, that being said, how is Volley to grind now? Oh my god, she's still a pain in the ass. I'm sorry if you find these missions fun, but I personally think these are extremely boring. To start, it's better off to play these missions by yourself because you have to bring less ink to the portraits. However, like, due to that, you're just there alone, sitting there invisible, occasionally popping the balloons you find around the map to get extra of the currency. It really honestly makes these missions boring to get through, and really makes you hope that you get the main blueprint to drop from the missions just so that you can be done with it quicker. But enough complaining, let's have a chat about Folly's Hunt. Alright, so the goal with Folly's Hunt is there's going to be 3 portraits scattered around the destroyed Vesper Relay. 2 of the empty canvases will spawn on the 2nd floor, while 1 will be on the bottom floor. I'm not going to go over all the spawn locations on the 1st floor, because only 1 spawns down there, and enemies don't spawn in until you pick up, like, the first paint. But I will go over the ones on the 2nd floor. 1 canvas will always spawn in the main room, that open area with like a giant statue in the middle. If you are particularly familiar with the replays, they spawn in the spots where Barrow stands, where you could trade for ducats, or where you would activate the True Master's font if you're Mastery 30. The second floor canvas will spawn either in one of the respective syndicate rooms, or as I had to find out the hard way in one of my runs, because I don't read the wiki before doing any of this stuff, in the hangar relay entrance, which is the door behind you when you get to the second floor. Do also note that the B canvas, which is the one I just talked about, can rarely spawn in positions for the A canvas that are unoccupied, the A canvas being the one I just talked about. This is according to the wiki, but I haven't actually fact-checked this, and I don't know if it happened in any of my runs, but if I have footage of it, I'll throw it up right here. Now, how the hell do we optimize this? Well, to start, I wouldn't recommend really doing this on the steel path. Unlike the majority of other grinds on this list, you will more than likely just slow yourself down, and it really isn't worth it. For my testing in the steel path off camera, I was dying a lot more and having to take a lot longer when you only get 10 more adamantium at the end of the mission, and only a 1% increase on each blueprint piece dropping. And to top it off, that 15 that you get from normal Star Trek completions of this mission isn't the only adamantium you get. You can pop balloons in the mission that will drop some, and I found myself getting like an average of 30, 40 per mission. I would just do this in the normal star chart unless you think you can handle the steel path version. Now, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. This grind is going to be very luck based. If you can get a component to drop from her, that'll save you 400 of the 2400 attrimentum that you will need. But the big thing you want to look for is the main blueprint, because that will half the amount of time you need to grind this, assuming you don't get any additional components to drop. Do note, with a lot of these grinds that come with a mercy system, do not buy the components with mercy currency until you have enough. This is going to admittedly be worst case scenario, but imagine you got no folly drops and you just hit 12,000 attrimentum collected. Let's say you go and buy the blueprint from the mercy vendor, who, by the way, is found on any relay. I think it's just outside the Arbiters of the Hexus room. Cool, now you have the blueprint. That's worth 12,000 attrimentum. Your grind is halfway over. But if that blueprint were to drop at any point after that, you'd now be down 1,200 attrimentum that could have been spent finishing the grind right then and there. I don't think I need to say this, but if you're a new player watching this video, please only buy from the Mercy shop once the sum value of unique blueprints collected plus the amount of Mercy currency collected equals the total cost to grind out what you need. Also, do your research and find out if they do have a Mercy system. A lot of grinds nowadays do have one. When I first grinded out Jade, I still didn't know about the Mercy system for a lot of the newer Warframes, so I ended up grinding out like 50 straight missions in the Ascension node on Uranus, and it was horrible. This grind, like a lot of other things, is going to be very luck based. You could end up getting each piece on your first 4 runs and never have to touch the mission again, or if you get really unlucky, you could be running upwards to 50 to 60 missions if you don't get a single folly drop. But the odds of that happening is extremely low, so if you don't get a single piece of her, I consider going and buying a lottery ticket. I think the biggest takeaway from this would be play solo, don't play on Steel Path unless you are absolutely sure you can run those missions with the same efficiency as normal missions, and try not to go insane from folly laughing in your ear every 3 fucking seconds. Only 3 Warframes left: Ashe, Citrine, and Hildren. All of these have grinds that I was not looking forward to from the start. Ashe from Railjack, Citrine via Mirror Defense on Mars, and Hildren via Exploiter Orb fights. It's time to find out which one of these Warframes was the last to drop. Yeah, it was Hildred. I'm not too happy about this, but remember at the start of the video when I said I'm going to try to avoid trading for primed versions of Warframes? Well, this was unfortunately the one exception to this rule. During the citrine grind, me and my brother occasionally ran exploiter orbs. Exploiter orbs require a diluted thermia to initiate the fight, and those can only be found from thermia fractures, and a fracture event wasn't even going on at the time I got to grinding Hildred. And to top it off, one only started a couple days ago as of the time I wrote this script, so I would have been waiting an extra week or so to get dilated thermia. So, unfortunately, I had to sell some of my excess Prime parts to afford Hildred Prime. It was kind of a disappointing way to end the challenge, but oh well, what are you gonna do? But I got the final 3 Warframes crafting, and this challenge officially ended on day 29. So all in all, it took me a month to get a little over half the Warframes in the game and finish off my entire collection. I started this challenge off needing about 37 Warframes, meaning I got about 1.25 Warframes every day in this challenge. I think I made some really good progress with this challenge, and honestly, even with some of the more annoying grinds to do for specific frames, this, at the end of the day, was a fun challenge to partake in. I'll probably make a video at some point or another about how to get every base frame in the game. Besides that, I don't think I have any major closing remarks. I do want to give a huge shout out to my brother who helped me with some of the more annoying grinds in this challenge, like Citrine. I also just want to say this is my first time ever doing a scripted video, so sorry if some of the recording pieces are kind of awkward. Aside from that, I don't really have much else to say. Make sure to like and subscribe. It took me quite a while to make this video. 29 days at the very least. But thank y'all for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Bye bye!